space where beauty meets authenticity and transformation is not just a possibility, but a promise. I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce you to someone truly special, Dr. Rukmini Vinaya-Rednam, the compassionate force behind the countless remarkable transformations in the vibrant city of Houston, Texas. Picture this: every curve, every contour crafted with care and expertise, not just by a board-certified plastic surgeon, but your very own cheerleader for self-discovery and confidence. Get ready to embark on a journey where we explore the art of science of feeling your very best self. This isn't just a podcast. It's your cozy corner of empowerment and inspiration. So pull up a chair, pour yourself a cup of kindness, and let's dive into the Confidence Doc podcast with Dr. Rukmini Vinaya-Rednam.
Welcome back to the Confidence Doc podcast. I'm Dr. Rednam. I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon in the Houston, Texas area, and I have a wonderful guest today. It is Sarika Diaz, and she is an esthetician. I'm sure a lot of you have some ideas of what an esthetician does, but today we are going to go over all the details of how you become an esthetician, what they're able to do, and what services you might be interested in. So welcome to the show, Sarika.
Thank you, Dr. Rednam. It's a pleasure to be here. Like she said, my name is Sarika Diaz. I am a licensed esthetician. I have been an esthetician for almost 15 years. Also, I am a licensed laser professional. I have been doing laser services and corrective skincare treatments for the last 10 years. And 2 years ago, I also started teaching at a local aesthetic school as well. I love what I do. I think that people have a lot of confusion, like you said, around what I can do or what, they're like, oh, you just do facials all day. I'm like, no, not really. There's a lot more to it than that.
So what made you become interested in becoming an esthetician?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I really wanted to join the cosmetology program at my high school. I went to my mom, who's a RN, and my dad, who has a PhD in biochemistry. So they're both very academically driven people. And I said, Mom, I want to join the cosmetology program. She said, no, you're not doing that. So, well, why not? And she's like, well, let's focus on your schooling and your grades and let's pivot that energies towards other things. I think, coming from their backgrounds, they just didn't see what could be done in the beauty industry or aesthetics, whatever you might want to call it. So I graduated high school and I moved out and I ended up going to aesthetic school anyways. So
you're like, thanks for the advice.
Yeah, there's a way, right? I was very stubborn and I still am stubborn, but I went to aesthetic school. I was also influenced by one of my aunts. She used to own a Heights massage and day spa over in Houston Heights. Mm-hmm. She's a massage therapist and was heavy into doing the lash extensions too. That was before you had to have a special license for it. But seeing her have her own business and really making moves was really also very inspirational to me to want to get into this field.
That's really amazing. So for you, was part of also being a business owner, was that exciting to you?
It was interesting to me, but I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of people in my life over my career that have told me, Sarika, when are you going to open up your own office? You don't need to be working for somebody else. You're just so good at this, all the things. And I used to kind of brush them off and I used to be like, oh no, that's too much headache. I just love what I'm doing. I just want to be here, on a day-to-day. I don't want the headaches of business ownership. And then my husband, he would reiterate those same things. You work too hard for somebody else. You love what you do. You're so passionate about it. Why don't we figure out a way for you to have your own thing? And then COVID hit. A lot of our lives changed. I started seeing life from a different angle. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I think that it's time for me to move into the next phase or the next challenge of my life, which would be to open up my own solo practice. Over my career, I've been really lucky to work in a really wide variety of offices, ranging from luxury day spas to award-winning plastic surgery offices and many other places in between. So I've had the blessing of seeing how other places work, operations-wise, and learning some of the good and some of the bad. And my practice is still a solo practice. I have goals of wanting to grow and have a team and bring in other people. So I hope that, as I achieve these milestones with my own solo practice, that I can implement a lot of the other stuff that I've learned over the years.
I love hearing that because as a business owner myself, I agree. Initially, it can be a little daunting. You're like, I'm just going to focus on what I do. But then you start realizing that there actually is a passion for that aspect of it too. Mm-hmm. And something really neat about creating that and be able to kind of bring your vision to life. Mm-hmm. So in your current practice, mm-hmm. do you practice everything that an esthetician trains to do?
No. So in the state of Texas, because every state is going to have slightly different licensing stipulations, however many hours somebody has to go to school, and then their state boards, etc. In school, mostly they learn to do facials and waxing, maybe some like body treatments like body scrubs or body wraps, but the scope is really basic. And I did that for the first 4.5 years of my career. Granted, I went to school, I graduated from esthetician school in 2009. I feel like these days, the girls that are graduating they know so much more than like I ever knew when I graduated, just because of like the internet and YouTube and social media and TikTok and Instagram. After working in a spa, then I was like, okay, I want to do more. And that's when like laser hair removal specifically started to be a lot more popular. And in the state of Texas, we were able to get like a specific license for that. So it was like a much more structured way to go about it. So that's when I went back to school to get that certification and licensure. So technically I hold 2 licenses in the state of Texas.
And for each state, it differs,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the state of Texas may be different than the state of New York. So that's why it's also important. Sometimes people will say, oh, an esthetician's not supposed to be doing that. Well, it really just depends on their training and what the state allows.
Yeah, because I don't do any waxing in my office whatsoever. I niched down and do what I enjoy doing the most, which is corrective skincare treatment. In the office, I'll offer corrective facials, like microdermabrasions or dermaplaning. So it's like your basic facial, but with kind of a twist of an advanced modality. Then I also do microneedling services, a wide variety of peels in varying strengths. And then I do a couple laser services. In my office, I have a Cyton M Jewel, which has the BBL platform and the Moxie platform. So BBL is an enhanced form of IPL used mostly on like light to medium skin tones to correct signs of aging. It can do hair removal on certain settings for certain skin types, pigmented lesions or sun damage, and rosacea. And then on my Moxie hem piece is like a light resurfacing laser I use on all skin types to treat hyperpigmentation, melasma, sun damage, and then smoothing out fine lines and wrinkles and anti-aging.
So it's a really versatile laser.
It is very versatile. I've enjoyed working with that platform a lot. I've worked with a ton of different stuff over the years, but when it came time for me to spend my own hard-earned money to try to buy something, I wanted something that was reliable and something I could use on a wide variety of patients, and that would deliver superb results.
And I couldn't agree more. We use a similar platform because it's really versatile.
It's a workhorse.
Lasers are something, especially since you were also a trainer, correct?
Correct.
It's an area that can do amazing things, and it can also do a lot of damage if it's not done in the right hands or the right people. So if someone is very interested in getting a laser, like where do you recommend that they first start kind of looking into things?
Well, first of all, looking into getting a laser is still like a very broad term, right? It depends on like what kind of laser are we talking about? Are we talking about something for hair removal? Are we talking something about skin rejuvenation or resurfacing or skin tightening, like whatever the primary corrective concern is? I would recommend that they seek out a provider that specializes in that, and that when they go have a consultation, even with my own patients, I tell them, I'm not going to perform anything on you unless I get to consult with you first, just like you wouldn't ever do surgery without meeting and, all those things. So seek out a provider that really specializes and has niche down in that particular type of service that they're wanting. Go meet with the provider, talk to the provider. What is your background? Are you an esthetician? Are you a nurse? Are you a nurse practitioner, a PA, a doctor? What's your schooling? Ask them how often are they performing these services? What is your experience with my skin type? Do you have before and afters of somebody that looks like me? after, going through that consultative process, somebody's going to know if they're comfortable with a provider or not. And then from there, maybe go to a couple consultations, we're in a big metro area.
Oh, yeah.
There are lots of estheticians, just like there's lots of plastic surgeons. And when you go and you meet with a couple, you can weed out pretty quickly who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't.
Right. And who you feel like you
comfortable with. Yeah, exactly.
And I'm so glad that you kind of said that, because people sometimes think laser and they think there's the almighty one laser. And there isn't. There could be, but that's going to be good for almost no one.
Yeah. I tell patients, I'm like, when you're looking to fix something, you want something very particular. You don't really want a laser that does everything, because I give them the analogy of a 2-in-1 shampoo. How good does that 2-in-1 shampoo really cleanse, and how good does it really condition? It's kind of mediocre at both. So
sort of getting something.
Yeah, it's like half and half. And let's face it, if we're paying for something, we don't want half and half results. We want those hyper-focused results.
I think it's always good to have somebody who, like you said, has photos of different people, different skin types, different ethnicities, because there isn't this one laser that's going to work really well for everybody. And you have to understand how different skin types react to be able to treat and improve their skin overall. What do you think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they are seeking out, and I'm going to be more specific this time, with pigmentation changes?
The biggest mistake is, I think that patients, first of all, don't wear their own sunscreens.
She's calling you out.
Well, not all pigmentary disorders, but a lot of pigmentary issues can be avoided if a patient is just good about
prevention.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I know especially in skin of color communities, Black, Hispanic, Asians, they don't think that they need it. And those are the ones that need it the most.
Yes.
They're the ones that always have that roaring melasma, and they just feel like they're going in circles chasing it. But then they're like, oh, I don't want to use a sunscreen. And I'll flat out tell a patient, well, I'm not going to treat you, because it takes two to tango. So that is probably the number one mistake. And then after that, if I was to choose a secondary, I feel that a lot of people price shop a little bit too much. I mentor a lot of estheticians, especially a lot of younger estheticians. And I'll tell my students in my classrooms when I'm teaching, look, when you're consulting and you're delivering pricing and all these things, price is only an objection in the absence of value. So whenever I meet somebody, I go through, my introductory spiel. I'm sure you probably have something just like that with your patients. My name is Sarika. I'm your esthetician. Thank you for coming in to meet with me. We have the next 45 minutes to sit down with each other, get to know each other, and talk about your goals. I've been an esthetician for this many years. This is what I specialize in. So I present them with the value on that front end. And so then when it comes time, and I take my time with them, I don't rush them. I don't overbook myself with their consults. By the time that it gets to me delivering their treatment plans with their pricing, I don't get as much pushback as somebody who's just a Groupon customer trying to get the next cheapy thing.
Yeah. And yes, we're both in the aesthetic field, and price shopping it's understandable. I understand where people are coming from, but this is your face or your body,
right. It's an investment.
It's an investment, and it's important. And I agree with you, not rushing. So I think that that's one thing to look for, is that no matter who you go to, make sure that they're not rushing you. I will tell you, we've had people call in and say, hey, I want to go ahead and get a laser. And, they want to come in for the laser. They send us photos, but it's hard communication. They can't really tell me about their stomach. And I'm just like, I don't want to do this laser because I don't want to ever leave somebody in a worse state. And if I can't find out all the information I need and know that you're going to do my aftercare, then I'm not really doing you a service by you coming in and quickly doing a laser and running out.
Yeah. It's from the beginning, I also set those expectations of look, this takes time to correct. And there is so much that I can do to help you in office, but I also expect you to go home and do your due diligence with following, like you said, your aftercare or even our pre-care. A lot of times, depending upon what we're trying to do, we need to pre-treat the skin in order to also avoid possible issues down the road. I believe that like preconditioning of the skin and post-care of the skin after said treatment they're equally as important. And then it's going to take multiple sessions because I say this, I am a esthetician, not a magician.
I've used that line as well.
Yeah.
I also don't have a crystal ball, so sometimes
we're not fortune tellers and we're not mind readers, So we definitely have to have patients that are compliant.
Correct. And that's like, again, another red flag is like if you go in someplace and they're just like, this is the laser for you or this is the treatment for you. And yeah, we're not going to really worry about this is the cost. Like that's a problem. And these are things that require skill and they require a basic level of understanding. And if you don't have those things and you're just like cookie cutter delivering it, then you don't know what kind of result you're going to get.
And even within the consultation, I do my best to meet my patients where they are. I like to give them options of a good, better, and best because I get it too. I'm on a budget with certain things. I'm not a millionaire. Sometimes maybe I'm going to choose the better option and then I can save for the best option or what have you, but at least getting started at some place is better than doing nothing. So I always find that that's helpful too.
I agree. Like, I think a lot of it is meeting the people that make you feel comfortable and being able to talk through. If your provider cannot explain to you in words that you understand what the treatment is doing, then they don't understand the treatment themselves.
I speak in analogies and I don't want to say dumb it down because I don't believe my patients are dumb, but I got to talk.
We speak a different language sometimes. So
the clinical jargon just is like going over their heads and, got to meet them where they are.
So what's your opinion on a lot of the products that people buy at stores versus medical grade skincare?
There are some over-the-counter products that do a great job for some basic things. So there are some great sunscreens out there. There are some wonderful cleansers out there. But when somebody has a corrective need, in my opinion, it's definitely going to be that more medical grade skincare products that are going to be formulated to get those active ingredients delivered into the skin to cause those changes. The way that I explain to my patients, because I get asked that all the time, well, why can't I just buy this vitamin C from X brand at CVS versus this $190 serum that you're making a recommendation for here? What's the difference? And then I'll tell them, look, think about your products like you would think of medication. So your OTC or over-the-counter products are going to be for the masses, right? You can go, you've got a headache, you want to buy some Tylenol. No big deal. You're going to take it. But if you have more chronic issues, say post-surgical, you're going to give them a prescription. They have to go to behind the counter and fill a prescription to get their Vicodin. Yeah, they're both painkillers, but they're not the same.
Yeah. That's a very good analogy.
Yeah, it's the way that an over-the-counter formula works very superficially in the skin. Partly for safety, so they're not like mixing all these different things and then just wrecking their skin and then causing problems. But the more medical grade skincare are not only have those active ingredients, but they're formulated in a smarter way with smarter delivery systems to get those ingredients to penetrate to the second layer of tissue, the dermis, where the live cells live. That's where we're going to see a positive change. This skincare, it's over-the-counter products working on the surface is all dead skin cells. This is not Frankenstein. We cannot cause change from dead cells. So it's not only, I'm not going to hate on all over-the-counter products. There are some that do a fine job, but if you're looking at your correctives, like your heavy hitters of your serums and certain medicated cleansers, I do have a preference for medical grade sunscreens because I find them more cosmetically elegant. But as far as like a sunscreen to be efficacious,
I would rather somebody wear sunscreen.
Period. Yeah.
And don't make it at home.
Yeah.
It's a trend going around right now.
Yeah. So. Kitchen skincare is no bueno.
Things in the kitchen for eating, not for
Not on your face. Yeah. Agreed.
So talking about like kind of turning to social media, right?
Mhm.
Like you said, like there's a lot more available now and people will see things and they get interested in it. One interesting trend that I've seen personally amongst some of my friends' children is girls as young as like 8, 9 who are like, I need to get on my skincare routine. I need to get going. So what's your opinion of this? And what do you feel like girls who are, you know, maybe let's starting in preteens, like what should they be doing for their skin?
Yeah, so I'm all for establishing healthy habits, just like our parents would have taught us from a young age when our teeth started coming in, getting us used to brushing our teeth. Same thing with these young children, also girls and boys, not just girls. You know, establishing healthy habits of washing your face twice a day with a facial cleanser, something that's gentle, a moisturizer at night, and a moisturizing SPF in the morning. Keeping it as simple as that. I have an 11-year-old niece who will send me all kinds of things. And she'll be like, Diaz, what's this? And I'll be like, you don't need to worry about that. Like,
your pores are fine.
Ignore it. Yeah, literally. Like, what pores do you have? What wrinkles do you have? Come on. I think establishing healthy basic habits are good. You know, they don't really need the actives because that could just disrupt their baby skin too much too soon. And then that is like a domino effect of causing other issues. And then they're like, could be chasing that problem around with other products. And it's just like a vicious cycle. So I'm for establishing those basic habits, but if you don't need it, you don't need it.
Exactly. Don't fix something that's not
that ain't broke. Yeah.
And I think too that what we're seeing is because more younger women and men are doing this, they're starting to look prematurely aged because they're damaging
too much
skin.
Correct.
You know? And I think that you brought up a point. Washing your face. I always tell people, if I had to tell you one thing that everyone should be doing when they're younger, especially women or men who wear makeup, is don't fall asleep with your full face makeup on. Because it clogs your pores, it causes a lot of problems. And like, these are all things that when we're younger, we don't think about. But I think that I do think the positive from there being so much out there now is that people do think about these things. They're like, oh, I really need to wash my face before I go to sleep.
Doesn't matter how crazy of a night you had.
Yeah, exactly. Just roll on
do
it.
Wash your face. Yeah, agreed.
What's one of your favorite products right now? And again, I mean, that's broad.
Yeah.
Like, what's one of your kind of like, if I open your purse, you pull out right now?
A sunscreen stick. I really love I can name drop, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Name drop.
Skin Better Science makes a sheer SPF stick. It's compact. It's super silky and elegant. Even for like my deep skin girlies, when they put it on, it doesn't leave them a white cast. They like it as a makeup primer. But for me, I keep it in my purse because you never know. Here in Houston, I get stuck outside and sun is the devil, or I'm just driving, like putting it on the back of my hands so I can have like some protection so I don't get old lady hands. But yeah, it's a sunscreen stick. That's what's in my purse.
That is an excellent product. I agree as well. I've used that as well.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of times the things that I think of too are sunscreens. And I like that you mentioned as no white cast because, you know, I'm Indian and I'd say I'm like a medium complexion for Indian. And there's so many sunscreen products that are out there that if I were to get a white cast and then I feel like, well, you know, you should be able to just wear some sunscreen and walk out. But then I look like I have this strange ghosty look to me. And I think that more products, both medical grade and non-medical, are paying more attention to that.
Yeah.
They really have worked to make sunscreen that it doesn't have that white cast. It looks really nice and soft and silky. So I think it is nice that there are more companies that are becoming more aware of the fact that we don't all look exactly the same.
Yeah. And especially us being in Houston, you know, we're I believe the 7th most ethnically diverse city in the country.
We're actually the 3rd.
We are the 3rd.
We're the 3rd.
Oh, wow. We jumped up.
Yeah.
Even more so important, you know, to have this inclusivity of products and treatments and like, because the whole world wants to be beautiful.
Yes.
You know, can't just exclude certain folks.
And I think it's important too, is always say whole world wants people, is that beauty also is different in different cultures, and different ethnicities. It could be different blocks, right? Like this high school was, It's just, I think the idea too is to listen is really important in aesthetics. And so I feel like I always try to do that. It sounds like you do a really good job with that as well. Is that when you are going to seek out an esthetician, we always like joke, not everyone can come to Sarika, right? Like, let's say,
I hope so. Call me.
let's say you're in another city, right?
Right.
Well, in that case, like, look for somebody who they don't always have to look exactly like you,
Right.
but they have to listen to you and they have to understand when you space specific concerns, like this is what I'm hoping to achieve, that makes sense to them and they can help you come up with a good plan for it.
Yeah. I serve a really diverse ethnic population of patients. Even myself, I'm biracial. My mom is Chinese and my dad is German and American Indian. So although sometimes I may look kind of fair, like in the winter, my skin still acts really melanated. And I tell, that's part of my introduction spiel. I tell my patients, like, I have also chosen to specialize as a multicultural skincare specialist because when I had problems with my skin, I found it really hard for me to find somebody that struggled with the same things that I struggled. And I told my patients, well, I've done all the experimentations on myself, so don't worry. Like, we got this, girl. And yeah, to be recognized, like, period, somebody that looks like you is really important in order to achieve those aesthetic goals. Because like you said, every culture is different. In Chinese culture, they think fair is the most beautiful. There's unfortunately, but it is what it is. There's a lot of colorism and or shadeism, whatever you'd like to call it, in that culture. I think everybody's beautiful, but we got to keep those in mind in order to help our patients achieve their beautification goals.
Absolutely. And especially being in a city like this, there are so many biracial children or triracial children.
Yeah.
My children are biracial. And it's like if someone saw one of my daughters, they would think that like if they just looked at her skin color to type her, they would totally mistype her. Because she's half Indian and she's half white, but she tans. So she really would be typed as a much darker skin color.
Higher.
And so I think it's important that that's also something to think about too. It's like someone doesn't ask you all those questions, then they don't really understand.
I set aside a good 45 minutes to an hour with my consultations. I remember one of my previous employers was like, you take too long to do this. And I'm like, look, this is serious stuff that, we may end up doing with these lasers or other chemicals and whatever. I need to know all this information, and I can't just ask her 10 questions on a questionnaire and get the answers I want.
What would you say is one of the biggest challenges in your line of work?
I think that just as an esthetician, working with other estheticians, that we're not created equal. I used to be in charge of onboarding and like training other girls at previous jobs I had. And I would see a huge difference in like some of the competency and the knowledge. And that was really and the motivation. And I think that's just like people in general. Either you're born a go-getter, or somebody's just like okay with status quo, or people are just unmotivated. But I found that like trying to get these people to want to learn more and do more and be more could be really difficult. And then for when I was working in a practice, having to kind of pick up the pieces after maybe one of my teammates wasn't performing as optimally. And then patients would have the frustration. And I even see this now as a solo provider, like, oh, I went somewhere and she did this and I didn't see the results, or she didn't explain to me, or, just not meeting those expectations. But I think some of that also can stem from lack of knowledge.
Yeah. And
so I think that's a challenge.
It's a huge challenge. And it's also shows you that like how important it is that whoever you see has passion for what they do. Because when people have passion for what they do, they want to learn. They want to keep, furthering their education. And you can tell when you meet someone if they're just clocking or not.
Yeah.
And, as a surgeon, I got to bring up surgery. So tell me, what role have you seen in your experience where an esthetician and a surgeon can work together?
I'll just talk briefly about my previous employment with another plastic surgeon here in Houston. I wasn't the only esthetician. I had 2 other colleagues, but the 3 of us estheticians would support him with a lot of his patients. He would do full body and face. So we would do cool sculpting or fractal lasers for like post-surgical scars, and for the face, same, a lot of other lasers or facials, because I think sometimes what patients forget, they think, oh, I'm just going to go get surgery and I'm going to get a facelift and everything's going to look great. Like I'm going to look, forever. And definitely, I'm going to look 30 years younger, boom, bada bing. And that's not the case. The surgical is only part of the aesthetic journey. If you tack everything up, you pin them up, they look nice and tight, but the skin quality is still not good. They still look aged and old. So when I was working with the doctor, he did a pretty good job of telling his patients, like, okay, well, I'm only part of your solution. I need you to go downstairs and talk to my girls and like, let's get you on a plan and, yada, yada, yada. And then the surgical results were just even much more enhanced, and they could maintain them much longer than if they chose not to do anything about the quality of their skin.
And I think that's a big thing in medicine in general. So we think sometimes we're islands with what we do, but whether it's aesthetics or other types of medicine, having a team approach, I think, gives people the best results. And you're absolutely right. Like you can't, so I use this analogy of like, you can't buy a new luxury car and then drive off the lot and be like, okay, well, I spent that money. I love my car. Well, you have to get maintenance. What if you get an accident? What's going to happen then? You have to be prepared for all those things, or just keep what you have.
Right.
Because I never want somebody to be disappointed. But if you're going to go in, you have to go all in, because everything requires maintenance. Even though plastic surgery can have some very immediate effects, if you don't maintain it by doing all the things to take care of your skin and doing the things to prevent you from requiring potentially more surgery down the line, you're going to be disappointed. Your provider will be sad that they didn't give you the best results. So these are things to think about, is that, like, yes, there's usually going to be a team approach. Even if you're not in the same office, you can still have really a good relationship with other people in town so that we can be a good team together.
Yeah, I refer people out all the time. I do what I do. I love what I do, and I don't want to do something else. I have, like, for example, I have people ask me, Sarika, are you going to like do Botox and fillers? And I'm like, no, never, ever. I don't want to do that. But I'm happy to refer you to, I have a short list of like 4 or 5 other super qualified individuals I am happy to send to you. And a lot of clients ask me too about like surgical options, like, do you know a doctor in town that does XYZ super really well? Or do you know anything about eyelid surgery or, whatever? I'll give them like, look, this is from when I worked in the doctor's office, but you still need to go get a consult. You need to go fix your dog, all those things. But I am happy to refer out. I do what I do. And then I find people who do other things really well, send them that way.
And it's like, I always think too, is like, you build good relationships with your patients.
Yes.
And so they trust you, and then you learn and you build this network. And so I love being able to be like, you know what, I don't do that, but I know someone amazing who does do that. So I think that like the aesthetics world can be a really like great place for us all to work together. Yeah. So I'm so excited and happy you came on the show, because I think that, this is stuff that people don't think about. We like you said, we think one and done, and there's just so much more to be done with it. At this point in your career, you own your own business. Yeah. You are an educator, and I love that you mentor, because I think that that's part of our personal duty. I feel like when you do something well is to help others achieve and rise up. And especially, we're biased, but we're women, and I love women helping women.
Yeah.
What is the next goal for you? So what are you hoping to maybe add to your plate next?
Business-wise, or just like generally
in general, is
speaking?
there something on the horizons, the horizon and aesthetics that you're hoping to learn, be able to provide?
So for my business, I guess I'll start there. I've got a lot of goals. I'm happiest when I'm kept busy.
Same.
So for my business, for True Skin, I would love to move into a larger space, because right now I have a single treatment room inside of a salon suites environment. So I would love to get into a full clinic, something with maybe 3 to 5 treatment rooms, bring in another provider, whether it be another esthetician or maybe a nurse injector, so I could broaden the menu of services in my office. once I have said clinic, I would like to also have an additional space for larger, kind of like a classroom, so that I can host workshops, because currently I'm a chemical peel trainer for Glytone and a key opinion leader luminary for Cyton lasers. So currently I will travel to other practices and train in their offices, but that also takes my time away from my own practice.
Right.
So if I can have a clinic to also house workshops, that's another goal of mine, is to have that hand in hand. Outside of just my clinic, I would love to do more speaking engagements and become more involved in the aesthetics community. I am a podium speaker at this year's Science of Skincare Summit. It's going to be held in Austin.
Awesome.
I hope you can come, or your team can come. It's hosted by 2 dermatologists, but last year they had an esthetician symposium, so like kind of a break-off session of their main sessions. And I spoke last year for the first time like ever in front of a big old group of people. I was so nervous, but I was really flattered when they came back to me and number one, asked me back, and then asked me to co-chair this year's esthetician summit. So I would like to have more conference speaking engagements just to get out there and help build more of the estheticians community. I feel that not all physicians value an esthetician or what an esthetician could do in tandem for their practice. And I would love to help elevate those voices in our community to say, hey, like, we're here too. And like, we can help you, like, do your jobs even better. So why not include us? So I have gone and reached out to a couple other conferences. I haven't heard back from anybody, but I hope that they would consider me to speak on podium to represent this group of professionals that really help to complete our whole aesthetic family.
Well, I just love that you're really pushing and like, you know, making paths, because sometimes that's what you got to do, is you got to make your own pathway.
Yeah, I ask for it. I have had I've had people be like, how did you get that speaking engagement at, you know, the conference? And I was like, girl, I sent an email. Like, didn't know anybody on the board, didn't know any of the other faculty speakers. I sent an email just asking a question.
Yeah.
Are you looking for speakers? This is me. This is my background. Here's my LinkedIn. And then they got back to me and they're like, yeah, come on. And I'm like, sweet. Let's see where else this might take me. So I think it's just asking for it. And then, you know, if I have it in my mind, I can achieve it. So as long as I go get it.
I just love that. I'm very much that kind of person too. I'm like, oh, well, I think I can do it. I'm going to go get it. Let me try. And I know this is like a little off topic, but for any women in any sort of aesthetics, this is a great example. It's like, if you want it, work for it. You know, the worst someone's going to say is no. Yeah. So thank you so much, Sarika, for being on the show. And
pleasure being here.
Tell us the name again of your practice and where you're located.
True Skin Aesthetics. I am in Meyerland, which is just, what would you say, south of the Galleria in Houston, Texas.
Just so you know, you can be an hour drive away in Houston and still be in Houston.
It took me an hour and 20 minutes to drive here today, but worth it. I'm happy to be with you.
We are a big, big city. But please check her out, because as you can tell, she really knows what she's talking about, and I can just see how much she cares. Thank you all for joining us. Join us next week when we have another exciting episode of The Confidence Doc.
As we wrap up another episode of The Confidence Doc, I want to extend our heartfelt thank you for being a part of our community. If today's conversation resonated with you, remember that Dr. Rednam and her team are here to support you on your journey to self-confidence and beauty. Your story is unique, and it's our privilege to help you create the masterpiece that is your life. If you'd like to book a consultation with Dr. Rednam, you can visit her webpage at drrukminirednam.com. Fill out a contact form, and one of her coordinators will get with you accordingly.